In April of 2019, TCAP fans the world over retreated with a surprise that few saw coming: the glorious return of Chris Hansen. For the first time, however, we were going to get access to Chris in a whole new way in the form of live stream chats, giving Chris the chance to chat with his many fans and the occasional hater. While much has already been written, recorded, and dissected about the glaring missteps and controversies since April, very little attention has been paid to his live streams, despite the fact that they are the only true new content we have received so far. Episode 1 was a feast for the eyes, if not the ears, as we were presented with a non-existent set, audio issues, and of course, trolls. So join BakedSalmon and me, Wes Moast, as we cover the top 5 hits, bottom 5 whiffs, and our favorite comments from the live chat and video. So why don't you take a break, take a seat, and...
Take 5 with Chris Hansen Live.
Episode 1. Chris Hansen makes a Taliban tape. Let's start with the top 5 moments from episode 1, as a hungry fan base waited to eat every tasty morsel dropped by Chris Hansen and his ragtag crew of scrappy professionals. Here's BakedSalmon.
Thank you, Wes. I want my $2. Good day, TCAPists across the globe. From the land down under to the Arctic tundra, welcome to our coverage of the first Hansen Livestream. Have a seat over there on the edge of a chair. This is my top 5 of Hansen Live. Number 5, the $50 Super Chat.
So our next question is coming from one of our YouTube
Hold on a
subscribers.
second. Well, we're going to get to this guy who just donated you $50. Says great stream, and his name is SMK Animator 2009. Sorry if I butchered that up.
I'm not going to blame Vincent for this one. I sure as hell didn't know that DKK meant Danish krone. But when it was pointed out that $50 in Danish krones is in the area of $8 American, I got a good laugh out of that. Intentionally or not, this individual had gamed the system, and I love that sort of thing. I still laugh when I think about it. I am a very simple fish. Number 4, the Danimation situation.
So Chris, I have a question from Deanimation. What are the possibilities of you being able to release old school, uncut interviews from the To Catch a Predator days?
The question from Danimation is, what are the odds of us? What are the chances of us?
I can't get over this one. It's not a big deal Janice got the name wrong. I'm not going to razz her about that. What I love is that she throws it over to Chris as being a question from D-Animation, and then Chris correctly states it as Danimation. What the literal F? Do you know what this means? He knows of Danimation. That has to be it. Assuming he is getting the questions raw, so to speak, wouldn't he say it back as it was stated to him? For all he knows, the name is D-Animation, D-E-E Animation. Instead, Chris says the name correctly because he recognized the name. Therefore, Danimation living rent-free in some corner of Chris's mind earns this spot on the list. Number 3, Hansen interacting with the community. It had been a long time coming, but it was here, baby. And it was happening live. There was an energy in the chat that I could feel watching all by myself, hiding in my work van while my customer waited for me to return. Yes, it was a horrible time of the day to air the live stream, but that didn't stop me, nor an untold number of others, from dropping what they were doing to witness the comeback of the legendary Chris Hansen. But it was the questions from TCAP community members being answered by Hansen himself that put the joy over the top for me. Heisenberg, Joey, Punk Pansy, etc. I don't have to explain what I mean. Those of you who know, know. And I'm not even bitter that my $2 request that he shout out Frigid went unanswered. It was a surreal experience, and because of that, Hansen interacting with the community has its place in my top 5. Number 2, Heisenberg White. The millionaire, reclusive filmmaker and son of Shirley Temple Black entertained us with some classic Heisenberg tomfoolery. Aiming to pull a fast one on Hansen, Mr. White came at him with 2 questions in one. Let's have a look.
So Chris, I have actually a double question. It's from Heisenberg White. Who do you believe was your biggest catch in To Catch a Predator or Hansen versus Predator? And also, what is your all-time favorite movie?
The question is, who was the biggest catch in To Catch a Predator or Hansen versus Predator in my all-time favorite movie? We'll get to the movie second, but first, you know...
It was a power play in terms of Q&As, and I applaud his effort. What is mildly irritating is that Hansen never did answer the second question. I suppose it gives the community something to lightheartedly troll Chris with in the chat of future live streams. Or we can all just assume that his all-time favorite film is Revenge of the Nerds 4: Booger's Wedding. But we have only covered half of the reason this icon of the community is on my list of the Hansen Live Top 5. Heisenberg came back later in the stream and had another question asked to Chris.
So we have another question. Again, Heisenberg White. Chris, as serious as these investigations are, can you recall a time where you or your crew had a genuine laugh, either at the expense of a predator or something behind the scenes?
Yes, the question is, have we ever...
I especially love this because Mr. Hansen goes on to describe my all-time favorite oopsie from the TCAP series. Check this out.
There's an element of humor there. I mean, I remember one time, as you all know, we often have snacks on the counter when a potential predator walks into one of our investigations. And in one particular case, we had brownies out. And somebody forgot to put the brownies away the night before, so they sat out all night, uncovered, on the kitchen counter. So the guy walks in, talks to the decoy leaves. Now I'm giving him a minute to see what he does before I walk out to confront him. And there's a mic planted near the brownies, and he picks one up and he takes a bite.
So did you bring the weed?
Mm-hmm.
So
Want to take a drive somewhere?
I figured we could hang out here for a little bit first and then maybe go take a drive if you want. I'm just gonna go get something to drink.
I'm surprised he didn't lose a tooth because the brownie had solidified overnight, and you hear this crunch. It's like, ugh. And he did not lose a tooth, and we went on with the confrontation, the interview. But
now, all of that put Heisenberg in the running for the top 5. But a trick up his sleeve sealed the deal. Not to be outdone by Mr. Gigi's $20.01 donation, like a salty grandmother on Contestants Row, Heisenberg played a cuck move on Gigi that had to sting. The actual retail price of Heisenberg White's second question, $20.02. 1 cent more than Mr. Gigi. Ouch. Number 1. Hansen talks about Lorne. Sure, one would hope that Chris Hansen would know about every predator from the show. I mean, hell, we do. But of course he doesn't, and that's a ridiculous assumption. I remember a couple years ago when somebody got him to say, "Oh, God," on a live chat.
All right. Dark Falls 79. Chris, an unusual request, but please bear with me. Please look at the camera and say, "Oh, God." It's an inside joke among many of your fans. Is it "Oh, God" or "Oh, God"? It looks like COD, C-O-D. Many of your fans, and you'll make a lot of people happy. Okay, here we go. "Oh, God." And just in case it's a typo, it's "Oh, God." Oh, COD. Okay, I see. C-A-W-D, the phonetic pronunciation. Oh, God. Okay.
He had no idea what that was about, and that's some of what made it so enjoyable. Generally, when questioned about specific predators, there's a lot of hemming and hawing from Chris. This time around, when the topic of Lorne came up, Chris responded like a student of Lornography.
It's interesting. The question is, about predators who stick out in my mind, but that's interesting. But also what fascinates me is which ones have almost attained an iconic status, and one is Lorne Armstrong. I think for whatever reason, people have latched onto him and are curious about him. And I think one of the reasons may have been that and this is a fellow who surfaced during our Kentucky investigation, that his chats were voluminous. I think when I walked out to confront him, literally, it was like a phone book. The chats went on for so long. And the grooming process was really exposed in that situation because...
He mentioned specifics which are certainly attributed to the Lauren and Kayla chat log. The best of the best, however, was Chris Hansen alluding to Lauren's nemesis, Derek.
You see him talking to the girl, the decoy posing as a young girl and saying, don't go out with this guy or that guy because it'll ruin our relationship. And
know this, friends, when Chris Hansen references Derek, I level up.
NANI?! お前はもう死んでいる。
腹減った。飯だ飯。うどん食いに行こうぜ。
行きましょう。
This is why Hansen talking about Lauren is my #1 pick on the Hansen Live Top 5. Wes?
Coming up after the break, the bottom 5 moments from episode 1.
Do you desire tea?
Take 5.
And we're back with the bottom 5. While it wasn't hard to come up with a list of 5 favorite moments, it was even easier to come up with the bottom 5. Here are the moments that made me say, wow. Moments that were unintentionally hilarious, and one moment that rubbed me the wrong way. Here's my bottom 5. Number 5. Chris Hansen makes a proof of life video. This is the worst quality video I've seen on YouTube since the Lauren Makes Wheat Coffee episode from the world famous Lauren reality show.
Hello everyone.
I'm not sure if they're using the same producer and art designer, but considering that Lauren somehow has an IMDb credit for the 1995 movie Dolores Claiborne, I wouldn't put it past them. I understand not wanting to go with the fancy set, but even beheading videos have a flag or some dudes with machine guns standing menacingly in the background. You already know things aren't starting well when you're being compared with terrorist groups and Lauren Armstrong.
Some of you do really think of some really dumb things to say about some really dumb things.
Number 4. Hansen versus ear rape. I've said it before, but it was nice to see Chris Hansen live. Hearing him, however, was another issue. Comedic hijinks were in order as we were given a sneak peek into the many technical issues that would become a hallmark of a Chris Hansen livestream. Even though the crew had famously done a test of the livestream for the YouTube audience that they hilariously left up on the channel for over a month, the trolls were given plenty of material to work with when the stream started with the volume turned up all the way to 11.
We're getting very close to finalizing.
It was the very first sound issue on a Chris Hansen livestream, but it will be far from the last. Number 3. Chris Hansen dancing around the truth. At the 3-minute mark, Chris Hansen talks about the new investigations that are underway. This was the news everyone was waiting for, and from the sound of things, Chris made it sound like this would happen at any moment.
A question from Daniel Gonzalez. When will we be able to watch these new investigations?
Everything I say is everything you've ever wanted to hear.
We have a question from Daniel Gonzalez. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for checking in. When will we see new investigations?
The interrogator was already aware that Chris was cheating on his wife with a woman by the name of...
With me on it, and we've had some shoots already. And we're in editing on a couple of things, and we're going to be going back out very shortly. And the moment we get that done and edited and turned around, you'll be the first to know, because you'll see some of that here on the YouTube channel and obviously on my website, Hansen vs. Predators. But I'm a liar.
Yeah, I'm a liar. Several months in, and the only thing we've gotten so far has been retreads and a Vincent Ambrosio drop that didn't quite live up to the hype, leaving some to wonder if the promise of new investigations was nothing more than a ploy to sell memberships.
Right now, the only exclusive to subscribers is the Vincent Ambrosio footage, but it is amazing.
Number 2. The only thing larger than his death is his massive ego. The live chat exploded with excitement when Mr. GG made an appearance at the 6-minute and 15-second mark to ask Chris why To Catch a Predator is so popular after almost a decade.
Mr. GG wants to know, in my opinion, what has propelled the success and notoriety of the Predator franchise for more than a decade. And I think it's a couple things. One, it's a testament to enterprise reporting and using the very best technology to wire a house or any environment in which a crime can take place.
Instead of recognizing the many content creators who kept his content fresh, from Sam Pendleton, BakedSalmon, The Codice, to Mr. GG and everyone in between who introduced TCAP to an entirely new audience and made the show relevant, Chris Hansen pats himself on the back for having the best technology to wire a house and something he calls enterprise reporting. I'm not saying it was all the content creators, but To Catch a Con Man had great technology too, but nobody is donating to a Kickstarter to have you relaunch that bullshit. Number 1. Chris gets lost in thought. Crimes. Like BakedSalmon said, I don't expect Chris to know the details of each predator he busted, but there's no shame in admitting that. When Conscious Type Person asked him at the 11-minute mark his thoughts on Stephen Coates,
3 acts you talked about. Anal sex, vaginal sex, and oral sex.
No. I never said anything about having vaginal sex.
Oh, yes, you did.
Streets on the China, never.
Chris gives an answer that sounds like it was well rehearsed in case he was asked about a predator who he didn't recognize. Just listen to this answer and you could literally swap out almost any predator from any episode before he quickly segues into a general statement. If you mention Stephen Coates and don't bring up his mixed CD of extra personal lovemaking jams, you don't know who Stephen Coates is.
By Conscious Type Person asked you about your thoughts of Stephen Coates.
My thoughts about Stephen Coates. Well, like so many of the men who've surfaced in our investigation, you got a guy who was exploiting the internet. You can see the grooming, the solicitation develop online, and he was out to take advantage of somebody who was 12, 13, 14 years old. And we see this over and over again. And I wonder sometimes, why anybody would think that this is appropriate behavior. But I think what has happened with the internet is that whereas there's always been predatory behavior.
As you guys know, Chris Hansen is back. If you guys haven't already, you should probably subscribe because it's gonna be fucking epic.
And that's my bottom 5.
With Chris Hansen Live.
Of course, anytime you have a TCAP related video, sometimes the comments are more entertaining than the subject on the screen. And this episode of Chris Hansen Live was no exception. Once again, here's BakedSalmon with top comments from the live chat.
Here are 5 outstanding comments, in no particular order, according to a fish. The announcer has marbles in his mouth, or John Wary's balls. Either way, he's entertaining. Vincent was a bit nervous, but I agree. He's very entertaining. Thank you for being a loyal fan. Chris, I love you, man. But everything was old news. The questions were old, the answers were old. Your next live stream should be new questions with new answers. For the love of God, please, Chris. We can go find out all these answers and questions 10 years ago. Tune in next week for Anger live stream. Details to follow. Okay, sing to me, Chris. Strokes. Fathers and sons? And those are the 5 comments that floated to the top. Not bad. A little tame this time around. We'll see if the crowd stepped up their chat game when we cover live stream number 2. Back to you, Wes.
Thanks, Baked. I have a few comments that for me deserve at least an honorable mention. David DeVito got things started off right when he came out swinging at the 44-second mark with the comment, "Are you still facing charges for wire fraud?" Proving that even Chris Hansen isn't immune to being called out for bad behavior. But it was at the 27-minute, 51-second mark when Cosmic Mapping dropped my favorite comment of the day when they asked, "In what state was the 1800s haunted closet you opened that petrified your skin and aged you 30 years? It was out of the blue, uncalled for, and nonsensical. Perfect for this live stream." So Baked, what about you? Anything you feel like I missed in my bottom 5?
Well, West Nile virus, you about covered it. There was one thing, however, that you didn't cover. Something that really got under my gills. The initial link sent out was not the correct link to the stream. So I and a dozen or so others were sitting in a chat for a video that was titled correctly, but wasn't the correct video. Inexplicably, the alert had sent us to the wrong place. Thankfully, some good Samaritan came and alerted the chat of the mistake, but we all missed the first several minutes. Little did we know the disorder was a sign of things to come, with future streams being rife with mistakes. Oh, and one other thing. The length of the stream? 29 minutes? Pathetic. This should have been a gala affair, not a drive-by. But whatevs.
And now we've reached the final
Five.
And here are the rules. BakedSalmon and myself will each have 55 seconds to break down our final thoughts on the episode before the timer goes off and our mics are cut. Baked, why don't you do us the honors and go first?
After the original TCAP was canceled, fans wandered and wondered if and when Chris Hansen would return. Hansen vs. Predator was promising but short-lived. Having Chris resurrected again was unlikely and thus unexpected when it was announced. Personally, I was excited as hell. The video quality didn't bother me for a while. The way he was filling up his channel's catalog with content from other YouTube channels was probably the first thing to not sit well, but it was not more important than the fact that Chris was returning. Despite being painfully short, a mere 29 minutes, it was actually a lot of fun. There was hope in the air. Fans could ask questions directly to Chris, kinda, for a fee. It wasn't perfect, that's true. Overall, however, seeing the excitement, seeing TCAPists in the chat, it was a lot of fun. There were alarm bells and red flags, but they didn't really take away from the enjoyment. Hansen Livestream won 4 out of 5 stars.
My issue with the live stream was the misleading promises about new content. It wasn't just once or twice, but at several moments during the stream, Chris teased new investigations and at one point went as far as to say those investigations were already underway. This was a big deal because Chris wanted to sell memberships, so promising exclusive content that could only be viewed through a paid membership channel and then not delivering on that promise is nothing short of fraud. I did not purchase an annual or monthly membership for that matter. But based on the internet chatter and many postings, there is a whole new group of Chris Hansen fans who feel taken advantage of due to his questionable practices. For the most part, the stream did its job, and Chris made his return to a mostly receptive crowd. Remember, that garbage website didn't exist yet, so nobody had any idea what kind of a shit show that they would be in for once it finally launched. Ah, more innocent times. But also, where the hell was Yap Yap? And that's it for this episode of Take 5 with Chris Hansen Live. Join us next time for our analysis of Episode 2 of Chris Hansen Live. On Episode 2, Chris finally discusses the Vincent Ambrosio footage and gets to answer a lot of questions he already answered in Episode 1. Because people don't pay attention and ask the same shit over and over again. BakedSalmon, why don't you take us out with something hilarious?
Get set, go. Hey, what the fuck? No way! Suck my dog, bitch!
I believe I knew your mother, son.
You know my mom?
Would your name happen to be Johnny?
Yeah.
What's it been, 13 years?
What?
14? My lord, it's like I'm looking in a mirror. Does your mother still hang out at dockside bars?
Dockside bar?
Johnny, do you play baseball?